They're misusing the gospel of grace. And we don't want to go after them because we're like, oh, well, but technically what they're saying is right. I think we need to be willing to call that out. So we made a video recently. It was called Preaching Love with Hate. And it's about people who essentially bully other people into believing the gospel, which, spoiler alert, is really not going to be very effective, right? If you're preaching about the love of God and all you're doing is using the fact of their sin as a blunt object, then you're going to come across like a street preacher standing there with a microphone just shouting in people's faces. The purpose of preaching the gospel is, one, to be faithful to God, because he tells us to preach the gospel. But number two, it is to give people an opportunity to understand the gospel, to understand that they're a sinner and the penalty is death, that Jesus paid their price and they can have everlasting life by believing in him. And then, obviously, the ideal would be that they get involved in a church community and they seek to make the Bible the foremost authority on their life and how they live it. That's what we're going for. If our approach is making people cover their ears and run away, then one of two things is true. One, they just truly hate the truth. And that's totally a possibility, right? John 1:11, he came unto his own and his own received him not. John chapter 3 says, but men love darkness rather than light because their deeds were evil. That's a real possibility. But that should be why people run away from us when we preach the gospel. That should be why people are offended, because they just straight up hate the light. What should not be the reason that people run away is because we're just straight up bullying them. And unfortunately, that is the case with many people like street preachers, and not all street preachers understand, but that's the connotation that many of them have, as though they're happy that people are going to hell. And then there are also, unfortunately, plenty of YouTubers who have this tone as well of beating people in the face. And I'll take what I see as the best case example. This is somebody who does not put works into the gospel. A lot of times when I say we, I'm referring to a vague cloud of teachers who are clear on the gospel, that the gospel is God commending his love toward us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us, that God is merciful, that God desires to reconcile us to him, and he did that through the death of his son. A lot of times, those of us who preach that gospel, we want to go after people who do not preach that gospel, but we're hesitant to go after other people who they also don't preach a works gospel, and yet they're bullies. They're bullying people with the gospel. They're misusing the gospel of grace. And we don't want to go after them because we're like, oh, well, but technically what they're saying is right. I'm going to contend that people who do this, people who that episode that I referenced is about, their own method betrays them. And here's what I mean by that. Think about it like this. If I look at somebody and I say, this person believes that they're saved by doing good works, that's not right. You're not saved by doing good works. But if I say this person says that they think they have to do good works to go to heaven, so they're 100% going to hell, I am throwing judgment on them. I'm not saying based on what they're saying, I don't think they've understood the gospel. I'm saying this person's 100% going to hell because of the words that they have said out of their mouth. I'm discounting the possibility that they've ever understood grace or that they've ever trusted Christ, and I'm casting judgment. And the Bible tells us not to do that very plainly. Matthew chapter 7, verse 1 tells us to judge not. Those are the words, judge not, that you be not judged. For with what judgment you judge, you shall be judged, and with what measure ye mete, it shall be measured to you again. And here's the measure that I think is being measured back in this case. If I am condemning you because of words that you have said, is it words that save us? Are there magic words? Are there sounds that must come out of my mouth in order for me to go to heaven? No, it's by faith. It's by faith. For by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it's a gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. And somebody's testimony, as I've said before, has two parts. There's what you say, and there's what you do. So when I look at somebody and I say, when when I smack somebody in the face with their verbal testimony, say, that's not good enough, that's not good enough, and I'm judging them, I'm hateful towards them, and I'm saying this aspect of your testimony, it fails the test, so you're going to hell. My own testimony is betraying me now because my conduct is not reflecting the gospel. Although the words that I am are, or at least they're attempting to, my conduct does not reflect God's grace to the hearers. Ephesians 4:29 was a verse that was absolutely drilled into my head when I was younger, probably because I had an issue, had a difficult time living this out. Ephesians 4:29 says, let no corrupt communication, not some corrupt communication. It doesn't say keep the corruption to a minimum. It says, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace to the hearers. This logic is self-defeating. My judgment is self-indicting when I judge that somebody's 100% going to hell based on what they do or on what they say. It comes straight back in my face because I'm not going to heaven based on what I do or on what I say. I'm going to heaven based on the testimony of God, and this is the testimony of God, which he has testified of his Son. 1 John chapter 5, starting verse 9 says, if we receive the witness of men, the witness of God is greater. The witness of men is when somebody says, I believe that I'm going to heaven because I'm trying my best to do good works. That's not a very good witness. The witness of God is greater than that, and this is the witness of God, which he has testified of his Son. Verse 11, and this is the record, right? That God hath given to us eternal life, and this life is in his Son. He that hath the Son hath life, and he that hath not the Son of God hath not life. When I start throwing judgments at people, it comes straight back at me like a boomerang to the face. And that's why I wanted to make that video about preaching love in hatred, because I think we need to be willing to call that out, and I am willing to call that out. I'm not just going to sit here and be like, well, as long as the things that you say are good, then that's fine. 40 to 60% of a message is communicated through the means of that message. There are mediums where you will immediately ignore the message no matter how good it is. So when we communicate the gospel, we need to show people grace. We need to communicate grace to the hearers with what we say and how we say it right off the bat. I think just about everybody could imagine somebody when I say this and they're like, oh yeah, he's talking about so-and-so. There's plenty of people who fit the bill for this. Regardless of what exactly they're saying, if it's coming in a way that does not minister grace to the hearers, that's a red flag. I talked about several red flags in this video linked in the description a while back of false teachers. Would be a helpful video if you want to know how to identify false teachers, because there's a lot of people out there that you just, whether by intention or by accident, they're not good examples for you to follow. And they're not people that deserve to have your attention or to be able to sway your thinking about how you should live the Christian life. And before I go, if you're new to this channel, go ahead and subscribe if you want more Bible-based content, if you want to understand the Bible better and live by the Bible in your everyday life better. Feel free to join our community. We'd love to have you. If you have questions, thoughts, please go ahead and leave them in the comment section for us. And until next time, don't forget to focus on the Bible.